Hi, this is Jordan. This month's XDA Developer TV is brought to you by the Samsung Smart App Challenge 2012. Enter for your chance to win your piece of over $4 million in cash prizes by clicking the link at the top of xdadevelopers.com or by visiting developer.samsung.com. Let's go ahead and get started with the weekly recap. We had a very interesting week this week with quite a few very big stories. So let's start with the story that seemed to be the biggest one in terms of at least social networking. It was shared almost 900 times in under a day. It appears that Apple has figured out a way to stop HTC from importing some of their products into the US. From the article, it says that Apple won a minor victory in court over HTC sometime last year, and it all has to do with a patent that Apple holds on the browser being able to recognize an alphanumeric entry, and then when you click on it, it gives you some sort of options. It seems very vague, and I'm going to be the first one to say that I'm not a huge fan of software patents, specifically when it's patenting an idea in software, but apparently some HTC products do still use this functionality, and so Apple was able to work out getting the products held up in customs, possibly indefinitely. So if you've purchased an HTC One X or an Evo 4G LTE very recently from Sprint, T-Mobile, Verizon, whoever else, the odds are pretty good you may not be getting it anytime soon. If you haven't seen it already, I do recommend you heading over to the XDA site and taking a look at the post by EGZ Thunder. There are a couple of open letters to Apple and HTC that are definitely worth giving a read. But enough about that, let's move on to another legal battle. As we've talked about before, Oracle and Google have been going back and forth about Android and specifically about their use of Java in Android for the last who knows how long at this point. However, there was a very interesting article posted this week by XDA Elite Recognized Developer and XDA TV Producer AdamOutler showing the updates that have happened in the Phase 2 of the trial. The really interesting part to me was a quote that Adam pulled from Grok Law, basically where the judge was saying that he'd never used Java or really done much with Java before this trial, so he didn't have much in terms of background in it, but he does have a background in programming, which is wonderful to hear that a judge in a case of this nature actually has experience in a development environment. But basically, a large part of Oracle's argument is that Google is infringing upon patents and infringing upon code use and everything with 9 lines of code. And essentially, those 9 lines of code check to see if an item exists in the range of an array. The code, if you'd like to see it, is over on the XDA site, and the whole Grok Law information and all the... It's really an interesting read, especially the back and forth between the judge and the lawyer, because the judge is saying that a high school kid could have written this and written it probably better than Oracle has written it at this point, and the Oracle lawyer is essentially saying, I don't know what that is, let's move back to talking about something else. So it's really a unique and interesting back and forth, and not something I would expect to see coming out of a recognized judge in a large-scale case of this nature. So again, if you haven't read it, definitely head over to the site and take a look at that one. And wouldn't you know it, Google is involved in the next story I thought I'd go ahead and mention. If you're a user of Google Play Music, and if you are a device flasher, which means if you take your device and put new ROMs on it pretty regularly, and if you're on this site, if you're watching this channel, or on the XDA developer site, you are probably a device flasher, you may run upon some problems in the very near future. From the article, it says that every time you flash a new ROM on your device, Google Play Music authorizes it as a brand new device, meaning that if you do the same thing over and over again, you can eventually have 5, 10, 15 devices on there. From what I've gathered, Google allows you to have about 10 devices on your account before you have to start deauthorizing devices. But apparently over the last few days, they've made a change to their policies so that you can't deauthorize more than 4 devices per year. Now, for those of you who do flash ROMs pretty often, this could become a bit of a big deal if you use Google Play Music. Looking at the comments on the post, it looks like this might have been taken care of already, but there's a lot of back and forth in the thread in terms of, is it working for you? Is it working for me? One way or another, if you are a device flasher and a Google Play Music user, you definitely will want to take a look at their site just to see if you are falling within that authorization limit and deauthorization limit. And to be quite honest, if you are falling within that limit, you might just want to look into a different method of getting your music. And speaking of locking things down and eventually just hurting the end user, turns out earlier this week, Motorola is locking down the Motorola Atrix 4G. With newer devices, be they replacements or just brand new sold devices, they've removed the ability to flash SBF files to the device. XDA forum member Daz8NT has created a thread over on the forums explaining what's going on with the Atrix. Now, for a lot of you, that's not really going to make much of a big deal. Basically, what it means is that you can't return to the stock firmware. That can be a big deal if you get a bad flash and you need to be able to restore. But for the majority of you guys, that may not be an issue. One way or the other, if you're considering purchasing an Atrix 4G, I would highly recommend taking a look at the thread, getting more information on it. Of course, I recommend that before buying any device, get as much information about it as you can. Make sure that you know all the caveats. If you are intending to do hacking, modding stuff to it, flashing ROMs and whatever else, make sure that you know as much about it as possible before you actually buy into it. And speaking of Motorola locking down devices, it looks like the Photon 4G is scheduled to be locked down after its next update. XDA senior member Lightsword1942 has posted the details on what's coming up with the Photon 4G, although it looks like there may eventually be a workaround from the community to sort of make it work again. For the foreseeable future, once they actually do release these updates, it will probably end up being locked down as well. So again, I have to repeat, if you're looking at the Photon 4G, definitely do as much research as you can. Go ahead and check out the thread over on XDA developers and just see, we'll see if there's any merit to this story from one way or the other, but at the same time, just do your research before buying a device, and if you own the device, again, keep up to date on it because something may be coming in the pipeline. Of course, again, if you're on the site, you may not be doing whatever update there is because you might just be using a ROM on your device. And speaking of putting a new ROM on your device, about a month ago, XDA forum member BigTorGJ posted an entire unlock and NAND access method for the Nokia Lumia 800 and 710 series. This was also done in collaboration with several other developers, including XDA recognized developer Ultrashot. Well, as a result of that, the first custom ROM has appeared for the Nokia Lumia 710, thanks to the hard work of XDA forum member Vova1609. This is the first Mango ROM for the device. Although looking in the comments for this, it looks like Ultrashot may have already made a ROM for it almost a month ago. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and stick with what the article says. The first custom ROM is now available for the 710. So if you do have the Lumia 710 and you're interested in trying out Mango on it, definitely go ahead and give a look at the thread in the video description. And the last thing I thought I'd mention today, if you haven't already seen it, earlier this week, XDA TV producer AdamOutler posted his unboxing the XDA way of the Samsung Galaxy Nexus, a very interesting watch, so I definitely recommend you go take a look at that. As always though, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, add it to favorites if you really liked it, and of course subscribe to the XDA Developers channel if you have not already, and if you want to be notified when we release new content. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.